Hello everyone, and since it's the International Day of Peace, I figured why not wear a shirt emblematic of the man who quested for peace? After all, what's that? Oh. Well, obviously we know which one we're gonna side with, either the International Day of Peace or a marketing gimmick. Hello, Angry Spork here in my Batman corner for Batman Day. And to be honest, I didn't really think of anything to talk about. I couldn't think of a subject. I know it was Batman's 80th anniversary and everything, but nothing really came to mind. Well, actually, I did have an idea for one of those 10-hour challenge videos, but I can only think of one thing to do that for. The orphan retcon sucks! The orphan retcon sucks! The orphan retcon sucks! The orphan Yeah, I don't see that catching on. So instead, I figured I would talk about just some random bat subjects that I've seen pop up recently. First off, the rumor going around that Bruce will be hanging up the cowl for whatever amount of time, and Batman will be a black guy. I can't say I'm excited about it or even feeling very strongly one way or the other. We've had people fill in for Bruce a bunch of times over the years. Jim Gordon, Jean-Paul Valley, Dick Grayson twice. And in fact, there was a storyline before Nightfall where Batman was wheelchair bound for a while, and while he was convalescing, there was some dude he was transferring his brain in to act as Batman. So yeah, that was kind of trippy. I think I only ever read like the last part of that story, so I'm not sure how it started. Who were they going to get to be Batman in this? If this rumor is true, that is. So who are they going to get? The way I see it, they have two avenues. One, they create an entirely new character, which may be kind of tricky because you're kind of expecting people to automatically jump on to someone they've never met to be one of the most iconic characters in comics and in pop culture. Who do you get to fill Bruce Wayne's shoes? Because Bruce Wayne is inexorably tied to Batman. And the reason why something like Batman Beyond works is because for the time it was just in its own cartoon universe, separate from the comics, and the comics were still doing their own thing. The other avenue they could try is Luke Fox, the current Batwing. By now, he's been with Batman's crew for several years. He's trusted. He's, I don't know if he knows Batman's secret identity. I mean, these days, it doesn't seem like the writers try very hard to even bother with the secret identity thing in several respects. I don't really know much about Luke, other than what I read in the Eternal stories, specifically Batman Eternal. And I don't think that's a great first impression of the character because, well, if you've seen my reviews for Batman Eternal, you might know why. As for, like, oh, it's going to be a black guy, it's like, I don't expect this to stick, whether it's a black guy, a Chinese guy, another white guy, or what. Like I said, Bruce Wayne is inexorably tied to Batman. And this might last a year, it might last less. At most, it might last a year and a half or something. I mean, and that's if it's done well. It has to be written very well. You can't just say, oh, we're going to do this thing to get some purchases. We're going to get people to pay attention to it. It's going to get the precious pat on the back from the oh-so-cool mainstream table. If it's true, it'll be a year-long thing, just like when, the first time Dick Grayson took over as Batman, while Bruce was pondering if he still wanted to be Batman, or when Bats was at MIA and Gordon filled in, all those other times. It's like, it's going to be like that, except, look, a black guy. Fun! Just when you think he's finished, here comes Frank Miller again with Dark Knight Returns, The Golden Child. I want the Batarang.
Please.
Personally, I stopped caring about what Frank Miller does in his possible future mini-universe thing after DK2. Didn't bother with the Master Race or that other tangential story, and this one takes place 3 years after that, and it's about Jonathan Kent, who apparently might destroy the planet because reasons, who can even tell? It's just weird. If Frank Miller just wants to keep writing, I can understand that, but maybe move on to something else. I think The Dark Knight Returns is kind of like played out its power and its impact, and just trying to drag it along now is just, I don't think it's going to have the great effect DC is hoping. I think that this is more akin to them just trying to remind everyone, hey, we printed The Dark Knight Returns, remember that? Hey, we printed Watchmen, so here's some more stuff from that stuff. Please like us. My interest in the entire Dark Knight Returns possible future setting thing is long since waned, so this is an easy pass for me. So there's the Young Justice comic that's not related to the TV show. I haven't read it. I've only seen like some promos. It seems to be more akin in some ways to the original Young Justice comic, where Superboy had the leather jacket thing going, Bart Allen was Impulse, and it was Tim Drake leading the three of them for a while. They've obviously got some new characters in it, so it seems to be in its own little universe. Now, for some reason, Brian Michael Bendis decided that, maybe not Bendis, but someone decided that Tim Drake was going to take on a new code name. He's not going to be Red Robin, or he's not going to be Robin. I don't know what he is in the Young Justice, but keeping in with the bird theme, he decided to go with Drake. And it's weird that it's his last name, and while Tim was more of a deductive prodigy with a genius-level intellect, not this general super genius the New 52 made him, he was still smart enough to either do one thing or not do another. And somehow I don't see Tim Drake, for as immature as he could sometimes be, deciding, you know what, my code name is gonna be my last name. And it fits because it's also the name of a bird. Specifically, a duck. I mean, he's fighting crime, and his battle cry is going to be quack. Now, initially, I'm like, this is incredibly stupid. This sounds incredibly stupid. But there's a part of me that, kind of clutches to some of the criticisms I've been given whenever I give criticism. I'm trying to see it from a certain perspective. And the thing about the original Young Justice comic was that it was very comedically inclined. The fact that the team eventually got named Young Justice was because Impulse was having this odd, almost who's on first style discussion with a reporter. So you're like the Young Justice League. It's like, no, we're young, but it's just us. Yeah, Young Justice. One of the first supervillains they fought was this, I think it was an archaeologist with ridiculously large mammary glands. I only got like a few issues of the comic. It didn't really resonate with me at the time. I didn't really get it. And I think I somehow got another Young Justice comic along the way. I didn't intend it, somehow I got it. I don't know. I was thinking that maybe, like, if they were going for this more comedically inclined atmosphere in this current title, then okay, maybe I can see how this could lend itself to some comedy. But it's like, it's a duck! He's named himself after a duck! What were you thinking, Bendis? I mean, he's not, I like his Ultimate Spider-Man. I like Miles Morales. But his Action Comics hasn't exactly been wowing me. People wonder, how can he be on like 17 titles all at once? It's easy, because he drags stories out with his unique style of dialogue that sounds so natural in modern day, but it's a stalling tactic. If he had to be more, concise and succinct, then not only would his comics be only a few issues long, then he'd probably only be able to take 1 or 2 projects at a time. I saw his costume, and except for the yellow, it's about what I expected, oddly enough. And here's the weird thing. Male ducks are typically colorful. That's so when hunters are on the prowl, they will be drawn to the colorful ducks and not the more drab-looking female ducks so they can, skitter away. So, technically, Tim should be a lot more colorful. But the thing is, you didn't want him to be called Robin, any kind of Robin. And if you didn't want the jokes or confusion with the burger chain, there's a simple fix here, DC. You could have called him Redbird. And that would lend itself to even more comedy if you would reinstate not only the pre-Flashpoint history for Tim, but also the pre-Flashpoint history and origin for Stephanie Brown. Because Redbird was the name of his car in the mid-90s. And so, that just writes itself right there. If you actually read those comics. But yeah, I don't expect it to last. I prefer to try and give things a chance, but it's just DC's not giving me a reason to do anything but ridicule them. Or be absolutely fatigued at everything they do. Speaking of fatigue, we have the Birds of Prey poster. And it just makes me tired to look at it. Not so subtly showing who the real focus of the movie is going to be. Now, setting aside some of the rumors I've heard about what the movie entails, I get it. It's a cartoony birds flying around someone's head, all Twitter-pated and so forth. I get that. It's a nice homage, but for me, I was not really wowed by Margot Robbie's portrayal of the character in Suicide Squad. That movie had a number of problems, and granted, her Harley was one of the few positive elements, but that's not really saying much. There was some inconsistency in her attitude and how she acted, and I never really got that it was a definitive portrayal, just that it was the first live-action theatrical portrayal, and I'm wondering if maybe some people are responding to that. And her standing around in her underwear, and bending over in short shorts. But this poster seems to give the character something she never earned in the movie. She was there, she was kind of fun, but I never noticed her going through any kind of actual arc. She was some eye candy, she got a few laughs in. Suicide Squad wasn't a very good movie, if you ask me, and the character being propelled to poster woman, literally, for Birds of Prey has little to do with how well she was portrayed, and more to do with the popularity of the character in both current comics and in the classic Batman animated series. On a thread devoted to this poster on the DC Universe forums, someone said that, well, the Birds of Prey were never going to get their own movie, they needed Harley for this, so I'm okay with it. Okay, if you're a fan of Harley, that's fine, I don't have a problem with that. But the idea that the Birds of Prey couldn't work as a movie on their own without Harley is absolute nonsense. If in all the Warner Brothers studios they couldn't find any writers to make them work, then they need better writers. Certainly DC Comics does, but as for the movies, I'm certain that there are some writers there that could make these characters into an entertaining film. Think of all the flack that Aquaman got for so many years as being the useless fish guy, and look at how good his movie was. And then you have the corny Captain Marvel that they made a Shazam movie out of that was also pretty good. If those two movies can succeed after Justice League and Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, then certainly Birds of Prey sans Harley Quinn would succeed just fine with the appropriate writing, directing, etc. Very little about the movie, as far as I know, has been actually confirmed as far as story and so forth, so I'm not going to speculate on that right now. I will admit that I am still apprehensive about the first live-action portrayal of Cassandra Cain. Mostly, if they don't just do an original thing all their own, they might lean towards Tinian's retcon rather than the good origin, because it's Tinian's version that's currently in the canon. A couple of decent films recently don't exactly calm my fears about this one. But yes, I'll wait and see, and maybe they'll surprise me. Lastly, I'll talk about Shadow of the Batgirl, which was announced a couple of months ago. It's a young adult alternate universe story about Cassandra Cain trying to look for Barbara Gordon. At first, I thought it was just like a one-shot based on James Tynion IV's iteration of Cassandra. I've learned later it's its own little universe. It's for the young adult audience, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think DC would have been far more well off financially now if they had done the alternate universe thing with the New 52. Just like with Ultimate Marvel, New 52 here, pre-Flashpoint Comics here, sell them at the same time. You don't like this? You still got this. You tired of this? You got this. And maybe people will buy both. It's called being remotely intelligent, Dan Didio. Try it sometime. I've seen the art for it, and it doesn't look bad. It has this kind of unique stylized appearance to it that I don't seem to see in comics very often anymore. It's not something that I see in like the adverts or the promos for other titles. They all seem, not that every single comic looks the same necessarily, but it's like stylistically they all have a very similar appearance to them. But I'm not like buying a lot of DC these days, so I can only say so much. I might pick it up. I have a friend that, he's well aware of how much I dislike what they've done with Cassandra. He's not a big fan of Scott Snyder, so he, if I say something about, I remember saying something about James Tynion IV, and he said, yeah, well, I think part of that might have been Scott Snyder. The guy's got one story that he's been telling over and over again. His words, not mine. Not that I necessarily disagree, but he works at a library, so he'll be ordering some for that facility. He'll check it out. And when you know it, the day after I record this portion of the video, he got various advanced copies in stock, Shadow of the Batgirl included. It's got nothing to do with Tynion's version, which is fine. So much the better. I don't like that he de-aged her to 15 years old. I've got some theories as to why he did that, and I'm sure he has his excuses, but, those don't really matter to me. I might pick it up. Maybe. It's not geared towards me, but, my age range. But, I'm a big... There's a reason why I feel this strongly about Cassandra, and, she was a good character. There was nothing wrong with her, but the idiocy up top kept getting in the way, and that didn't help when, they rebooted her after years of people saying, we don't like the reboots. And then Rebirth comes along as an apology, and, no, we're going to keep Cassandra the same way. Why? We're going to keep Cassandra the same way. Yeah, but why? You should read Batman. I'm just very wary about alternate takes on Cassandra, because some people seem to think they get her, and they don't. Not even a little. I think Adam Beechin got Cassie more accurately than Tynion did. And I know how much flack that's going to get me. I was also wary with Convergence Batgirl, because I didn't know anything about that author that wrote that two-parter. That turned out to be okay. Cassie wasn't exactly the center of attention, and that's fine. It was more about Stephanie. I'm very pensive about this, because it's my favorite character, my favorite Batgirl, and DC's done her dirty for too dang long. But hey, it was years ago. Good intentions! I guess that makes everything better. Hey, there's an idea. I'll go down to DC Comics and smack Dan Didio in the face with a brick and say that I did it out of love and good intentions. That'll help me escape legal prosecution. That's my rant on Batman Day. Take care. God bless. See you later.